Hello, in today's series of videos, I'm going to talk about Angular mean stack CRUD operations. I have two other videos on how to upload, download files. Feel free to check them out. So this CRUD operations create, update, read, and delete records. So this is the sample app I built. I use mean stack, which is MongoDB, Express, Node.js, and Angular. Okay, first this web app, you go to the home page, you'll see a list of diaries, and you can check the diary entry. By the way, today's October 1st, but I'm using the future date. Yeah, you can see here, October 10th, because my Maggie and I became best friends forever. You can go to another diary entry, October 6th. This is a wonderful day, and you can add an entry here. Click this button. You can pick a date, let's say October 7th. Today, Daddy and I went fishing. I'm just making things up. You save. It will navigate to this new diary entry. October 7th, today, Dad and I went fishing. And go to homepage. You have one extra diary entry now. And of course, you can edit. Today, Dad and I went fishing near the beach. Now you can see the entry has been updated. So go home, this entry has been updated. Of course, you can delete it. Now only two entries left. This is the bare minimum. If you want to create a new entry, you can see there are just two fields, date and contents. Super simple. So this web app is by no means a comprehensive web application. It's just for demonstrate the idea of the CRUD operations. Okay. So first, I'm going to talk about software installation. What kind of software you need to install? So on the back end, you need to install a bunch of software. First, you need to install Node.js, obviously. I use the latest version, the beta version for Node.js, and also Angular beta version. So here it should be version 14. So this document is made earlier, yeah. Version 14, or whatever the version you want to use. Okay, for MongoDB, you visit the website, the official website, how to install MongoDB. And I use Fedora version 32. I use the installation for Fedora or the Red Hat, yeah. Some other software you want to install, obviously Git for version control. If you're a developer, of course you know what Git is, yeah. I won't elaborate. Visual Studio Code is the most popular text editor for this web development type of work. Actually, it's pretty good for a bunch of other stuff. Even C++, I use this guy for some simple code, yeah. Postman, this is a guy for testing APIs. I strongly recommend a tool to test APIs, even if it's a terminal tool like curl. Because when you build a backend, you want to test it right away, yeah. So this is highly recommended. I have a video online on how to install Postman in Fedora version 32. Feel free to check it out. Okay, so that's the software you need to install. Now there are a few global NPM packages to install. The NPM is Node Package Manager and the Java runtime, yeah, Node.js. So you can install everything in one line of code, yeah. Sudo npm install globally. Angular CLI, I use the latest version, so I use the Angular CLI at the latest, yeah. Express, obviously. Express generator, so this will allow you to create Express backend with a single line of code with all the boilerplate code set up for you, so you do not have to type everything out. Mongoose, this is the middleware for working with MongoDB, yeah. This is optional, you don't have to in Node.js. Now, after you have finished installing the software, let's talk about backend. By the way, both the backend and front end, you can git clone from the GitHub. So here's how you create your backend from scratch. You go to a terminal line and use Express. Project name here is the diary CRUD operations or some backend or whatever you want to call it, and the project name, and no view because you're using Angular, right? So no view library. So --git will create a git ignore file. This is important because if you create a git repository for your backend, you want to ignore certain files like all the Node npm packages. You don't have to version control those. They are downloaded from internet. So create a git ignore file, and then you can use cd into the project, whatever name you call it. You can install all the packages and you can install everything on a single line. Cores. Oh, this is all. You don't have to install Express file upload. Mongoose is necessary. Succinct is an optional. So this is a very simple demo. So it does not use succinct.io. The body parser is necessary to handle like a JSON data. So install cores, Mongoose, and a body parser. You can ignore this guy. Yeah. Once you have installed these packages, let's go to the backend. So this is the client. The backend is this guy. Bear with me, okay? This is the client. This is also client. Where's my backend? There are too many Visual Studio Code windows open. I will pause my video. Okay, let me continue. So this is the backend project. Sorry, I have a number of projects open in Visual Studio Code. So when you create this backend folder, you perform those npm install the packages. You will see these files. The first thing you do is to create a folder called models. Then you create a data model. So the model is very simple. It requires a Mongoose. The schema has only two fields, a date field, it's a diary, right? And also the contents of the diary. Okay, we have a diary here, and we can export this model, calling the model diary. And this diaries of Claire is the name of the collection, and the schema we use. So this is the first file. Next, you want to create a API endpoint. Under routes, you can create a new file, diary.js. Every file you can just clone, and this just walk you through how I created these files. And here you can see we use Express. It requires diary, and also there are a bunch of API endpoints. Oops, my daughter just came over. Okay, here this endpoint allows you to get all diaries. So diary find, without any argument, it will return all the documents. This is the Mongoose thing. Yeah, if you are familiar with Mongoose, MongoDB, you know these are query operations, just like a SQL, like a left join, right join, whatever. This is just a query for MongoDB. If there's error, it will return an error message. Otherwise, it returns the data, every record. Here, find by ID is getting a data by ID. You supply the ID, and MongoDB will find that record for you and return that record. So getting a single diary entry. Here is a post. The post method would use a create method to create a new record in database, MongoDB database. Please remember this create method is from Mongoose. Mongoose does not have insert one method. Insert one is for MongoDB. So you're using this middleware called Mongoose. To add a record, you need to use create function. You pass this function, just the new data, and you get a response. Either it's error, or if there's no error, you would return the same data you sent over. Yeah, respond to the same data. So you add a new diary entry. Update a diary entry, use the put method. So the HTTP put method, unlike post adding a new record, the put method will find if the record already exists. If it existed, you update the record. If it does not exist, you add a new record. So here, find by ID and update. If that already exists, update the new data. Otherwise, you create a new data, new diary entry. So you pass the record, pass with the argument, which is a new data item, the diary entry, and add a new entry or replace the existing entry. So delete, this is fairly straightforward. And the find by ID and remove. Send me the diary ID and I will remove it. Use the find by ID and remove method from Mongoose. Yeah, it's very simple. And it also returns the removed data. So you can look at it for the last time before it's removed. Okay, so that's basically the CRUD operation defined as API services. The API endpoint, you can see here in my app.js. So created the data model, create API endpoints, you go to app.js. So here app.js added just a few, use the Mongoose, use body parser, use the cores, cross-origin resource sharing, and I connect to the MongoDB library. And here my MongoDB library does not have any authentication or password, username, nothing. It's free access, and hosted on my local host. By the way, before you start this project, you need to have a MongoDB database running, either hosted on your local host or on another computer, doesn't matter. You need a MongoDB database because web apps have three components: the front end built by Angular, the server built by Express and Node.js, and also this MongoDB as database. So the backend is in the middle, front end and database on two ends. Okay, here's some error handling and logs connection successful. I imported my diary router. This diary router defines all the API endpoints I just showed you, right? Okay, so app.js, you import the new router, you use this router, and the endpoint is API. So, okay, that's the backend setup. Once you're done, you just run npm start under this backend home directory, and you will be able to serve it. And this backend by default use port 3000. If it's already taken, you need to switch to a different port. Otherwise, you can just kill the process that's taking the port 3000. So under this bin binary www file, there is this 3000 port number. You can use a different port if it's taken. When you run npm start on the terminal, you can navigate it to this guy, localhost 3000. And you should be able to see this default Express backend text. Okay, so that's the backend. After you do the backend, you launch this. I personally prefer this guy called Postman, but you can use pretty much any software, even the terminal tool like curl. So here we have a diary request. You go to this localhost 3000 API if you use post method, and you can just the body, you should put some value to it. So here use a raw type is JSON, and have a JSON object. Diary date is let's say October, let's see what time, 8th. And I kicked Ashton's ass out of school. You send it. What happens that you go to this MongoDB Mongo Compass. This guy, you connect to your localhost database, and you go to this diary database, Diaries of Claire. There are 3 entries. The last one is October 10th, I kicked Ashton's ass out of school. Yeah, so your backend is working. So that's about the software installation and backend setup. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the front-end setup.